Hello and welcome to the latest Hot Topic FA Learning webinar. It's myself, Graeme Carrick, FA Youth Coach Developer, and Paul McGuinness, FA Senior Coach Developer. So this afternoon we're just going to be having a football chat and chatting around and sharing experiences around football development. So hopefully it'll be quite informal. If you do have any questions, put them in the chat and we'll do our best to sort of filter through those questions. And we'll pick up, more than happy to pick up any questions that we don't pick up later on Twitter or elsewhere. Who are we? Paul is he has been with the FA about 3 years now. He was at Manchester United for 28 years as player and coach. And also before then, we'll be sort of speaking a bit about the influence of his dad and his dad's background on him and the experiences and lessons learned from that and how that might shape or provide some lessons for all of us, really. And myself, Graeme Carrick, I'll be sharing a few experiences, both of my own background, especially a little bit about growing up at West Ham with Tony Carr's the coach, and also sharing the similar experiences that I had to my brother Michael and his journey, really. So that's us, and that'll be some of the experiences that we'll be sharing and reflecting on as we go. So to begin with, I'll just outline what some of the areas we'll be covering today. So we'll be talking about the importance of connecting people. We'll be talking about the importance of connecting experiences and how we might connect football and connect the players and ourselves to football. And hopefully, as that visual represents, really important to all of it and going all the way through it is the spirit of football and the importance of keeping the essence of the spirit of football at the heart of everything that we do. So, Paul, do you just want to come in and explain the spirit of football, what it means to you?
Yeah, I think it's a very personal thing, how you feel about football, how you grow up with it. But for me, it's very much at my centre, the soul. Your soul is very much the spirit of football. Sometimes it's way high. Sometimes you might get down, and it's a little bit, down. But the flame is always there and can be ignited at any moment. It's like the perpetual flame; it never goes out. And for me, it started. My dad was a player and a manager at Manchester United and coach around the world. Growing up with him as a dad, playing in the back garden, I remember vividly about 4 years of age, him bending the ball to me and me asking, well, how did you do that? And he said, well, if you just come from the side and you bend, you hit it with a bit of spin on the side, then the ball is going to spin and bend. And wow, it was like magic for me. And from then on, I was against the wall. I was experimenting with the spin, the bounce. It just captivated me, just the feel of the ball and trying to do new things all the time. Sort of stayed with me ever since, even in this lockdown now, trying to do new things that you see on TV. Going to school, playing for the first time in the playground. And we played every break, Wembley singles, Wembley pairs. Probably the older ones will know exactly that game. It was our staple diet. Coming inside from the left, trying to beat people, trying to beat 8 people, beat the goalkeeper. Or if you were clever, you'd stand the first couple of rounds in front of the goalkeeper and tap it in. All those things a lot of us have of playing. Going on the park with my dad, overhead kicks, diving headers. Because he'd seen Real Madrid training, he had an overhead handstand back heel, which was so spectacular. But we would take on all comers. We'd have a group of kids, all ages, come over to us while we were practicing, and he'd say, "Come on, do you want to take us all on?" We'd take them all on, about 15 of them. We'd have 3 of us. He'd say, "Just try and dribble past them all." I was 18 playing in Man United reserves at the time, but still, it was great fun and we loved it. But even more than that, the kit, the boots you grow up with, watching your top stars. Brian Robson had New Balance boots, I think it was, and then all the stadiums, everything. To just the smell of the grounds, any little bit I love about football. And even say the great players have this. I remember a story once, Norman Davies, the kit man at Man United, said about Johan Cruyff, Man United Barcelona at Old Trafford. He was stood in the tunnel at the dressing rooms, and he just sniffed the air and turned to Norman and said, "Hot dogs? We have hot dogs?" and Norman had to go out and get him a hot dog with mustard. And so even the top stars have that feel for the spirit of football. I'm sure you've got it, Graeme, and I'm sure the people out there will have their own special spirit of football feelings.
Yeah, massively. And I got asked last year, actually, a great question: when did you fall in love with the game?
Yeah.
Can you remember that moment where you just had that real deep love, and you sort of the realization of this is the thing for me. I love this, and it comes in different ways for different people, as you say. But yeah, that I think the essence of the game and having that, we can't lose sight of it, especially when we're coaching kids, but any age, it's so important. I think for me, we've spent so much of my childhood either in the back garden, showing my brother how to play, obviously, or at Wolves End Boys Club, which was such a special place to us that went. And even now, you mentioned about the sort of the feel and the smell of the place. It just comes back, and people that have those places or those experiences. And sometimes it might be in a more formal setting, or sometimes it might be it comes from the garden or youth club, like it did for me, really. So, yeah, everyone will have their own stories and their own connection to the game, but we have to keep that right at the front of everything that we're doing.
Yeah, I think very much so. And that was the case at Manchester United, Graeme. When we go on to this little next slide, was my sort of brain dump after many years there, saying, well, what is it? I know it looks a complete mess there. That people going about philosophy had that in the middle, but then if you look to the left-hand side at the bottom, that love of the game and the spirit, that really was running right through all everything that was done there, especially with the kids, but with all age groups. That fun, that love of football, the volume and variety of football, a great variety of football played and in training, different types of games, different surfaces, and that was at the heart of it. So you're absorbed in it, and you had that experiential learning. But also there at Man United, they had a real continuity in club culture for homegrown players. And my dad was a Busby Babe with Bobby Charlton. He would have been on the plane that had the air crash, but was injured. So I got all those stories of it growing up and wanted to follow in those footsteps. And it's inspired by an attacking playing style, a shared vision, and it was linked by history. That there was definitely a connection of following in footsteps. That you had to be the guardians of that playing style and the history of it. And then up to the top right, where you've got all those things about club values that we'll maybe talk about in a minute that Sir Alex really pushed, and then high standards, always high standards. I wouldn't say world-class standards for everybody, for everything, but probably it's your unique club standards because you might have your own particular style. You had that at West Ham, didn't you, Graeme?
Yeah, and I think especially there's a lot of similarities to what I felt as a young player at West Ham, especially around the identity of the club and being guardians of something bigger than yourself. And at West Ham, it came from Ron Greenwood, who had been heavily influenced, I think, by the great Hungarian team, and just total wonderment at like the way they played the game when they came to Wembley that time, the famous time. So it stemmed from that through John Lyall, through the likes of Billy Bonds as manager and Harry Redknapp, but also through Tony Carr personally and his influence on the academy. And Tony talks heavily about that still, but you felt that as a player, you felt the importance of that, and you could attach to. You sort of knew where things were coming from, and it was really deeply ingrained in the club.
Yeah, and I think that's connecting people. That connection of one generation to the next. You think of West Ham, you think of Bobby Moore, Martin Peters, Jeff Hurst in the World Cup squad, but then going on right through, some of the fantastic players, Trevor Brooking and so on. There was always a particular style. And when you read back now and think about the Hungarians, that's what they were trying to do, push and run football. And I think that really is, the essence of it. Generations connecting it, and that could be in any junior club, grassroots club. There's lots of people who've connected it over the years and passed it on to their sons and so on, and that's that spirit of football passed on. Yeah,
and I think we at Wolves End Boys Club back then, growing up as a kid, we had a sense of that. So I think this isn't a thing which necessarily needs to be for pro clubs or whatever. I think it's just when you get a play where it stands the test of time, really. So we had it, and as a kid growing up, we were well aware of people that had came from the area and the youth club that had came to the youth club. So the amount of players that came from that in the past, but wasn't so much about that. It was just like parents or uncles or other people that had been involved in the club. So from a community sense, it was the heart of the community. So that had that attachment and connection to that was really, really important and sort of part of the glue of the community, as well as seeing this and hearing the stories of the people like Alan Shearer, Steve Bruce, and Peter Beardsley, or even before that, like Eric Steele and Neil MacDonald, and these stories, and it almost you feel a real sense of belonging to that, and almost like guardians to that to this present day. And there is some real similarities across these different stories, I think, where that sense of connection and passing on and being the guardians and being the next ones and leaving it in a better place comes through quite naturally.
Yeah, I think that comes from the next slide we've got, doesn't it? That before you can actually really get good football, you need to connect the people. And that's, the next slide, I think, is showing that connecting people. So that's the basis for, without this connecting people, your football is not going to be as good as it can be, that's for sure. Part of that for Man United up at the top left-hand corner was Sir Matt connecting the youth. Sir Matt Busby started off that journey of having young players. That they were called the Busby Babes. They won the first Youth Cup for 5 years. My dad played in 3 of those with Bobby Charlton. I've always had that connection, but it was Sir Alex who also followed that on, top right-hand corner, connecting people. And if anything, Graeme, that was his biggest asset.
Yeah, I was going to say, so what was Sir Alex's influence on that, especially around player development in the academy?
Well, yeah, he connected all the people in the club. It was like a family, and he made it so that there was a connection and a good feeling for the players. And that started with the scouts. A lot of the people forget about the scouts, but the scouts had the first contact with the players and the families. And Sir Alex trusted them unbelievably. Now, in the old days, when I started off, I was in my late 20s, 27, 28, as the Centre of Excellence Director, thrown into a job there. And the scouts, he treated them with great value and trust. So we would have kids in a holidays, and it would be my job to organise all the games and trial games. I have to organise them in the afternoon so the manager could come across and watch. Afterwards, he would have a meeting with all the scouts and get their ideas on who'd done well. And so that made them feel valued for a start. But if someone hadn't done well, he'd always turn to the scout and say, well, he's not done so well this time. Would you want him to come back? And he would always trust the scouts' opinion, which obviously gave them a great sense of value. And that was fantastic. I mean, my first time I was doing that, I was only 27, 28. You had to do everything. You had to sort the kits out. You had to sort the teams out, the training. You'd have to organise the minibus. You'd have to get them to the hotel and back. And I was so busy doing this in the first time that I forgot to speak to the scouts. So at the end of the week, the manager pulled me in and said, I've had a little complaint. Some people said you're a bit aloof. I said, well, I'm just working hard. I was trying to. He said, no, the most important thing when these people come, they are looking for kids all over the country. They're doing late nights. They're doing weekends. They're in the snow, the rain. They are so important to this club that you've got to make sure they feel good and feel part of it when you come. So it was one of the best bits of advice ever. And some of those scouts have been friends for life since then. And really that was a fantastic tip, really. And that's how he ran the whole club. He made everybody feel valued, and that created a feeling where they felt they belonged. And in that sense, just the other week, as one of the scouts from the Midlands, Kelvin Hardman, who's the main scout, one of the main scouts in the Midlands years ago, he spoke to me last week and said, it was amazing when the reserve team coach or the first team coach came up to you and had a chat with you, and you had a young lad there. Well, it didn't have to do a lot of good for your status, but also made him realise that it was all part of a family. And that sort of connection definitely helped. And I know from your experiences going to West Ham, you felt very much at home there, didn't you?
Yeah, I've said this before, where I think, speaking on behalf of myself, but probably more interestingly for the people out there, for Michael, but the two reasons we signed in the first place was, one, because of the playing style. Not tactically, but the feeling of the playing style, where you could get on the ball and do a bit. That was really valued. But most importantly, probably, was the sort of family feeling of the club. And I know that was really reassuring for our parents, that, especially moving down from Newcastle to West Ham, and it's a long way, especially back then before mobile phones and all that. they were really comfortable in the fact that we'd be looked after. But us as kids at that time, being 14, 15, 16, the sense of belonging that we got straight away, we felt, and I'm speaking for myself and sort of for Michael a bit, I'm guessing, is there was this real immediate sense of connection and being welcomed and feeling comfortable that you could be yourself and you could fit in and people looked after you and you felt part of something and the feeling was great. So that was a real big, from the start, almost one, and then once you arrive, then you get to know the place more. But even from the outset, that was one of the things that really drew us in, both. And I really went to other clubs because of Michael being there, and he's older than me. I know you probably wouldn't look at it as I look 10 years older, but Michael was he was already there, so I started feeling a bit of the pressure of, it's Michael's brother and all that. But it was just the pure enjoyment, and I loved it there. So after nearly not going, I thought, no, I'm doing it because I love that place the most, and it was because of the people, and I think just skipping across to it, the coaches have got a really important part to play in that, and a lot of it's the atmosphere, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But everyone plays a part within the club. So whether it would be Shirley in the canteen or Jimmy Frith, who was at West Ham, who was always around it, and he never really coached, but he was always there and he made you feel great. And so it's not just the coach. Various people have got a role to play in creating the atmosphere. I'm guessing that was the same at United.
Absolutely, yeah. And the manager would make the whole family feel at home. So he had, we would take any kid who we're trying to sign on a match day, first team match day. The manager would have his parents in the office at 2:00 before a 3:00 kickoff. Now they were amazed. An hour before kickoff, he'd spend half an hour with them. He'd make them feel at home, but he'd also set the standards that this is, he's got to really work hard. He's got to sacrifice, but he'll get a real chance here. So there was a real sense of both care and challenge there that it was set, but the parents believed in the manager, and he held up to that. That care was unbelievable. The year they hadn't won the league for 20 odd years, and the year they won it, after 3 games they were in the bottom 3. They hadn't had good results, and 10 minutes after the end of the game, the manager asked me to get the telephone number for Paul Gibson. I was a young goalkeeper under 16. He had a really bad injury, smashed his nose, and they were even saying he might not play again. And he phoned him in the hospital with his parents and said, don't worry, son, we'll look after you, we'll get the best treatment, and we'll get you back. And that sort of ability to sort of go from the first team and then quickly shut it off and then have care for the young players set really an atmosphere of both care but then challenge. So he would say, I don't want any fear, I want you to take the ball all the time. They've got to take the ball all over the pitch. And the only fear really was of letting him down. So, right, they've got to take the ball. We've got to do what he says. And there wasn't any fear of the fear really was of letting him down. That was the thing. And there was another guy called Tony Whelan. There was a lot of people, like you say, but Tony Whelan was our barometer, sort of the guy who stopped it getting too professional at times. He was the guy I say he was. Yeah, he stopped it, the premature professionalism coming in. Remember, they've still got to be children, and you've not got to put too much pressure on them. So this way of connecting people definitely was vital, and because of that, they were able to be absorbed in the game. And a lot of the training was playing, then a short break, and then some information, and then playing again and a short break. So not stop start really, and that was a real atmosphere created by the manager, and then it was a ripple effect because everybody then did the same sort of things. They connected with everybody else, connected with the scouts, connected with the parents. And
that is part of the challenge, or if you can get it right, where everyone really feels a part of it, and they are a part of it. They don't just feel. It's not something you do to try and help people feel involved. They really are involved. You see, and everyone sees the importance of people, and also, as I said before, it's almost the culture and the vision needs to be lived by everyone, and that's something that we hear a lot, but we've probably never spoken about in them terms back when you were at United. But I'm guessing by the people that you brought in and the reason they were brought into the club, I'm guessing that was a big part of it because they had an attachment, a real connection to Manchester United at that time, or we definitely had it down at West Ham and at Wallsend, where there was this is what the club stands for. These, and everyone's got to play a role in that really.
Yeah, exactly. And then part of that is having some ex-players, players who've been through the youth policy, had quite a lot of those involved, as well as some outstanding people who came from outside. And in that sense, it really was a sense that everybody, they felt they belonged to something special, that it demanded a special type of playing style and behaviour, and that you were really were the guardians of a certain identity. So that was a big part of connecting people so that they felt they belonged to it. So that would be the first sort of section that we've talked about, Graeme. Yeah.
And just I'm interested in that picture with Jimmy Murphy and your dad. I'm guessing
Mhm.
back. Well, I'm guessing maybe the 50s, late
Yeah,
50s.
that would be the 50s. So yeah, that I'd call that personal coaching. So my dad I wanted to go into coaching because of the way my dad talked about Jimmy Murphy, who was the youth team and first team coach at Man United and helped all these young Busby babes from Duncan Edwards, so on. But my dad was so in awe of him. This was the guy who knocked you into shape. This was the guy who taught you the game. This was the guy who looked after him. And he tells a story about one time Jimmy Murphy said to him, "Go behind the Stretford end and kick with your left foot, after training." And my dad thought he was testing him because he didn't come back for 2 hours. But there was my dad 2 hours later still practicing. And that convinced Murphy that, he had a real chance. And he gave him that real personal touch. But then years later, we were on a tour to Kenya. It's a fantastic, life-changing tour, really. And Bobby Charlton was on it with the under-15s. It was an amazing afternoon, sat with him talking about the World Cup and everything. And then he said to me, "Do you have individual coaching?" We said, "Yeah, we do individual coaching, shooting and stuff after training." And he said, "No, I had a personal coach, Jimmy Murphy. He was like my personal coach. That's how he felt of him." And he would take him after games onto Old Trafford. And even on a Sunday, the day after he'd played a game, and he'd knock balls around the pitch and make him run after and come back. He'd say, "Bobby, you need to be fit if you're getting that first team." And then he'd take him behind the Stretford end and say, "Right, as hard as you can, both feet, Bobby. Don't worry about where it's going. Just hit it as hard as you can. If you don't know where it's going, how will the goalkeeper, from 30 yards out?" So Bobby, was like, that's what he was like. And if they went on tour, they went to the Blue Stars in Switzerland and they had a little hotel. He said he would just grab you, Murphy, and he'd grab you and he'd have you for an hour talking football. He was so fanatical about it. So this had an influence on me. I tried to do the same with the young players I had, taking them to first team games, take them to Anfield, take them in the dressing room at first team games to get that connection with the first team. Do individual training with them, and work with them. Yeah.
I think just to bring it, so I'm conscious that this isn't obviously there's a lot of your stories around Manchester United, and some I've mentioned a few bits about like West Ham or Wallsend, but hopefully this could apply to anyone. In part over the last 13 years, I worked at the FA, and a lot of the work I've done has been in grassroots football in lots of different settings and contexts, in the boys' game, the girls' game, and being in lots of different places. And every now and then, you just find paradise in the most random places. Do you know what I mean? So there was a Hunslet in Leeds was one where you go in, it's like a youth club, and there's boxing going on, there's dancing, and like, do you know what I mean? And it's the facilities aren't great, as in really posh facilities, but there's a feeling, there's something about it, and there's kids everywhere, and the care of the people involved, and so sometimes we think, it's all right for the big clubs, but sometimes it's about what's going on within it and the social fabric of the place and the attachment, the belonging, and the connection. And I think you can whip that up if you get it going. Do you know what I mean? And I think you can do it. And as I said, I've mentioned Hunsel. There's loads of pockets that are going on, and real great stuff where you can whip up this type of connection amongst people within a community. And I think that's all, whether that's within academies and talent settings, or with England teams when kids come to England, or whether it's in a grassroots club or a youth club, or in an inner city program, or in a charity where you're getting kids off the street. That sense of belonging, if you can whip that up, you really get something special going on. And that drives a lot of the football behaviours and the spirit of football and connect with the game and the feeling. So I think it's something that can apply to everyone. So just going to go at this point to a couple of questions that have came through. Obviously, we've got loads of questions already, which is brilliant. Keep firing them through. There's a question around people versus players, and the emphasis on on players first and the dangers of that, and is this sometimes lost that you need to consider the person when you're coaching kids in whatever setting, I'm guessing. And is this an area for improvement from what you've seen across the game? So that's for you, Paul.
Well, I think the two things we've talked about here absolutely sort of nail that. The fact that you have to think about connecting with the person. So to do that, you've got to know about their own background, get a feeling for them. And what you're really trying to do as a coach is ignite that spirit of football. They're there because they love football probably, or they've got a feeling for it. And always I would be trying to ignite that spirit, get it to come out. And what do people like to do most? They like to play. So I would always be starting. We used to start even at under 18s. We'd start without a warm up. We'd go into 5-a-side training 2 or 3 times a week. So if we did 20 minutes warm up with that, by the time we'd finish, we'd got an extra hour. And of course, that's the volume of football. But kids just love playing, and that was our way of getting a bit of street football almost before we started. So you do have to connect with people and think about, what would they really like? I mean, whenever I do a session, I think, well, would I enjoy this? And if I wouldn't enjoy it, I think, well, what am I doing it for? Jim Ryan was a great mentor of mine at Manchester United, and I remember one of the CPD events he did for the club. He always said to the players, to the coaches, well, make sure you coach what you like. Coach things you like, because if you don't, you're not really keen on it. Well, that's going to come over. You're not going to be able to transmit that spirit of football. So, of course, you'll have to like all aspects of it. You have to like bits of the defending, you have to like bits of the attacking, but find things that you like and pass that on, and then you'll find that spirit of football sort of ignited. That's what I've always tried to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of bits to add on that from me around different people will have different connections to the game, and that's great. So I think there's a danger in trying to expect other people's spirit of football to be the same as yours in different ways. And I think being open to that and that's important for all of us, whatever setting we're in. The other thing I was just going to say about a quick story about the person. I read it recently. It was quite powerful, actually. I read an old interview from about 10 years ago that someone had done with my parents about having 2 sons growing up in the academy system. And one of the headline statements from my mum was the special thing about West Ham at that point was that the track Graeme as Graeme, not as Michael's brother, and that sounds like a fluffy thing, but it was really important actually at that time, because by the time when I first started going to West Ham, I wasn't Michael wasn't in the first. He was just a youth team player. It just moved down. By the time I then went down as a youth team player, he was in the first team and playing for England. So that perception changed massively. What we found was actually when I went to trial in different clubs, there's always, there's Michael Carrick's brother. When I went to West Ham, they always really treated us as Graeme. Now that was important. And Anton Ferdinand was my age, and he had it probably a lot worse than me in that sense, following Rio's footsteps. So that had a real good way of disconnecting that and just like, who's Graeme as a person. So again, seeing the people and coaching the people in front of you and seeing them for who they are and see them as individuals is vital, and often that unlocks the football bit. So yeah, it's vital, and it's not easy to do, and it's a real skill of the coach and the people involved to do it. But again, whatever setting you're in, personal view is that's really important, and again, that carries through to first teams. I know we're talking about player development, but player development doesn't stop at 19 or 20 at the moment someone gets in the first team. I don't think it ever stops. Players continue to develop throughout their career. So that some of these ideas are, Paul's talked about Sir Alex, and via Michael, I'd say Michael felt the same when he was signed as a first team player. So that sense of connection and the sense of standards, but care in the atmosphere and all these things carried on. So it wasn't just an academy thing at Man United at that time. It seemed to go through. So lots of things to consider. There's also a question about how connecting with different people develops your own values as a person when you're involved in these places. So I know Paul's talked about people like Tony Whelan or Sir Alex and Sir Matt around their values then influencing other people. I certainly had it from coaches, but another important thing is I got it a lot from players. So when I've been a naive Geordie and going down to East London at the age of 14 on trial as it was back then it is a bit of a culture shock, new cultures, new ideas, so you learn, and you learn as much from the whole environment, the people within it, as you do from it, and you do learn from coaches, obviously. But the environment can be can play a big role in shaping you. So yeah, I think you've got to set out to learn from all cultures, all different people that you meet, and I think they do shape you. And the more you spend time with people, they're going to rub off. It rubs off on you. That's my experience. I don't know whether you've got anything just final to add on that, Paul.
No, that's very much the case. And so when you're surrounded by lots and lots of good people, as I was there, good football people, experience, then it definitely it rubs off and it passes on, and then that passes on to the players as well. Yeah.
So I think that links now into. So we've talked about the spirit of football, the importance of that being involved, being through everything, running through everything, and the importance and skill of connecting people, so that you whip up the sense of belonging and everyone's in it together, and it's this special feeling that you can get going. So what about the experiences?
Yeah, well, definitely. If you're connecting the people, that's what football's about: connecting with other players and having that feeling. So, also, if you've created a situation where people feel that they belong, the people care about them, but they're also challenged, then you've got the perfect recipe. And that's what we had year on year. It got higher and higher challenge all the time. Someone good is always coming in, but there's also that sense of belonging, and in that sense, it was always skill is king, and you're trying to get better and better. That had
what was at the heart of the experiences that you were trying to create. So to provide for that.
Yeah, I think so. I think you realize you're at one of the top clubs who they have to have skillful players to break down the opposition. Of course, all the other stuff comes into it. You had to have high fitness levels, and all that was in there as well. But there was right from the early ages with the young kids. We had an idea of extending street football, extending childlike football. We did it all the way up until under 18. So there was still an element of that. It was a thread going through, so that spirit of football never stopped. It wasn't like, we're too old for that now. We carried it on all the way through, because those sort of clever skills and 1-2s around the box or dribbling, they were a part of beating someone who parked the bus at Old Trafford, say. So we knew those skills were required. And of course, it's all right getting them in the foundation phase, or a lot of clubs seem to stop after that. But the fact is, they need to be better and better, those skills, because the opposition are getting better, and you have to refine them more. So in that sense, play was still a big part of what we did. And in that sense, play to explore and have trial and error. So a lot of the skills that you're talking about, dribbling, 1-2s, combinations, they require an atmosphere where people are not afraid to make a mistake, because to learn them, you have to make quite a lot of mistakes and learn from both doing it well and not. There's a lot of timing involved and so on. And you have to be allowed to play and go in with an atmosphere. If you go in, there's been research done, if you go in with an atmosphere of feeling that it's fun, it's not threatening, then you can be more creative. And there's some research to say that your awareness broadens, and in those senses, you need a broad awareness of all the cues that are happening in a tight area, say, and then you can build the connections. So in that sense, one of the things we did was we played, Jim Ryan had a session where he'd have, say, might be 10v6 or 12v8 or so on, and the 6, if they won it, had to dribble, but they couldn't pass. So actually it was 1 against 12, and it looked a complete mess. In fact, Gary Neville came one time and said, this is not possession, they need to spread out. But the whole point of what we wanted was a lot of chaotic play, and now people look 1v12, he's got no chance. But no, really the information, when his head's down like Messi, he's looking at the first 2 or 3 guys and seeing their legs, and now the information is those. If he beats one in a moment, a skillful moment, then he gets another opportunity, another moment, it's another 2 or 3 in front. Now, you'll be amazed how many sometimes, and if you've got someone like a Paul Pogba or a Januzaj or players like that, they might beat 4 or 5 people. Now, what we're hoping then for is it transfers into the box, and they might do that, and they would do. You see the skills he does now. And the same, the people who are on the ball, they would be combining. So now it's 10v6, but Jim had this phrase called the arrogance of timing. And I think it's something we want to emphasize with kids, of not just playing quickly, but playing at the right time. So it would be more like a matador. That photo I had at the start with a cape is the idea of drawing players on and letting them come to you, maybe moving it, dragging it to the side, then playing at the right time. So stay on the ball for the right amount of time entice them in, and then play it with the front of your foot and round the other side. You can just imagine Paul Scholes doing it, and then get it back. Oh, now here's another opportunity. So that the whole section, then he might play it first time and get a 1-2, or he might dummy it, keep running, and somebody else plays him in. So that environment was trying to recreate street football or playground football, where there was lots of opportunities with the tight information that was required. And
you also did some stuff in the cage as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that was very similar. So we would do that on a Monday afternoon, then we'd have a break, and we used to have just tea and cake or a biscuit as a break, and then we would mix the age groups. So there'd be different ages all in this cage, and we'd have 13 aside. The cage was about 55 by about 35, something like that. So 13 aside was just about right. 1 in goal, 12 out. Now that's 3 sets of 4 aside. So we might combine through 1 4 aside. That's that information. Oh, but all of a sudden there's another set of information the same. They could do it. And it was amazing how they would. And of course, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of times they get it wrong. And you might have a little word to say, well, think about enticing them a little bit more with your timing, or going towards them to commit them a little bit more. That would be the little bit of the information you give. But generally, they were learning off each other and learning off the older players. It was almost learning by osmosis in that type of thing. And we had a phrase. There was a Brazilian coach came over, and he actually at half time in one game gave the centre forward a bit of stick because he wasn't running about. He said, Callum, you are a privileged spectator. And what he meant, he was standing around watching a lot. But we said for the young boys, you're a privileged spectator. You know, you're 14, 15, you're playing with Pogba or one of the others, Jesse Lingard or whoever. We say, wow, what a privilege to be so close to them and see the timing and see the skills and the disguise and the feints. So that was, a big part of what we did.
I think it's important with all this stuff is to always consider the player's perspective on it, and not just be stuck in like, this is what I want to do as a coach, but also bear in mind what players want, but also what they think they get from it. So with that in mind, that last year I asked Marcus Rashford about what Paul's just described and what he felt he got from that.
Paul McGuinness talks about a lot about the cage, and can you just describe that a bit and tell us how that maybe helped you?
The cage was like, the way I see it is, it just fast tracks your footballing brain, because I remember when I was younger, I must have been about 11, 12, about 11 years old. Used to be at the back over here actually, next to where the first team used to train, and you're playing in the cage there was Adnan, Paul, Jesse, Josh King, all these players that are at the end of their development. Yeah, they're more physical than us, but you know, they're not going to try and smash you. But the things that you learn is irreplaceable. The speed of what they could do skills at left us with all that knowledge that people don't have until they're that age. So when we went back to our normal age training group, like, we start to do the things that we've seen them doing. And that's how it works. It just gets passed down.
Was that as sticky for everyone else, by the way? Or was that sticky for Paul as well? All these videos are going on already on the FA Boot website, or will be going on. But I think the thing that comes from that is the importance really of learning from other people, or people that are further on in their journey than yourself, and it probably naturally happened a lot more back in years gone by. And obviously you've always got to be careful around the safety of the players is paramount, but providing experience with mixed age group can be vital in helping the players develop relative to where they're at. In terms of anything else on the cage, Paul?
Yeah, well, it was exactly that. You have a mixture of ages. Now people say, well, what do the old ones get out of it? Well, the older ones became leaders. So Paul Pogba would be the Pied Piper with the younger ones. So would the likes of Ravel Morrison. They were looking up to these players and copying them. And that's exactly what Marcus said. They would copy what they're doing. They're getting experiences of timing and disguise and using your body that they couldn't get in their own age group. So it's like it's like a fast track. They're learning by experiential learning, and then they would go back into their own age group, and they would be ahead, and they would be passing that on to the others. So that's all the connection between the training by the fact that you're playing with older players, and it certainly had a big influence. And the older ones, because there was less pressure, they could try more things, they could be more creative. So there was something in it for everybody there. Certainly something that had a big effect. And later on, you've actually got the connection that someone who could be 5-6 years younger is then later playing in the first team with that player. They've actually done it before. They've played together before and had that connection. So that was really important, yeah.
Just also then, but you did all other things. So just quickly, can you just outline sort of some of the other ingredients that you would have in your program to balance that off?
Yeah, well, what would happen was I call it like box set learning. So if you did that on a Monday, the next day you might be doing possession, build-up play or attacking, and those things would come out. So it might be tight down one side of the pitch, and it would be a little 1-2 that you'd done in the cage the day before, and then you change the play out to the other fullback. So those skills were coming out constantly. Or particularly if you were playing in and around the box, those skills were vital. The dribbling skills you'd had the day before were reconnected the next day. So that's that overlearning. I like to say box set learning, because you've done one set, you've done one series or one program. The next day you do a little recap of it, and then it's gone again. The next day you recap again. So the central themes were connected all the way through, and they didn't stop at 12-13. They went all the way through to the first team. Was important. But of course, sometimes the atmosphere would need to be different. You've got highly demanding defending sessions that might need a lot more vocal encouragement from the coaches and some more direct coaching. So there's all types of coaching that would go on. Key to some of these things as well were passing down from year to year. So each age group had the similar experiences. You'd go on similar tours. So the 1950s, they were pioneering with Matt Busby going to a Blue Stars tournament. Duncan Edwards, Bobby Charlton, all of them went. My dad went for years to a tournament, and they played for the first time against Germans, Italians, the Catenaccio, different nationalities. And that was before they'd even played in the European Cup for the first time. So that was a great preparation. And again, these tournaments going abroad, a great preparation now for the Champions League or so on. But what they did was they carried it on. So the class of 92 with Beckham and Bott and Gary Neville, they went to the same tournament, had stayed in the same hotel. So that's another connection where you can connect your players both in terms of off-field experiences, but also on-field experiences were vital. Again, the Northern Ireland Milk Cup was something we went every year. First time for some of them play in front of big crowds in stadiums, and also there would be a balance there. So every Tuesday we went to the beach, did daft games in and out of the sand dunes, and then down into the sea relay games until someone tripped up, and then they had to go in up to the neck, all the players. So all the players had an experience of that year after year. They had similar experiences. So again, it's like a family going on your holidays. You've got similar experiences. You're growing up, but also growing up with the same style of football all the time. And within that, we had certain themes. One tour, we had a chain theme, which was to help defending, where each letter meant something. For the under 12s was, and they had a little sort of hacker with it. So it was compact. C was compact. H was hard to beat. The A was attack the ball. The I was in position, and the N was never switch off. Now, this was both on the field, but it became off the field as well. So little things like that can be help. We had other themes.
On that, Paul, I think one of the key things then around the themes, I know you had a lot, is around making it memorable for the kids and a real memorable experience. And I guess part of the thing, just reviewing this bit, is around the ingredients and this thing of play and serious experiences, if you like, and the balance, and when do you provide what for the kids, and how do you match your coaching up with the experiences they get? It's all part of creating that experience. But I also think, we'll get back to the spirit of football. When you're really immersed in play, even if it's totally self-initiated, we should have a lot of little games at West Ham where it was off the cuff, where we just make them up. And I'm talking like 18, 19, 20 first team players playing a little head tennis game, self-initiated. The coach hadn't set it up. And then you get the league going, you get competition going. And that happens a lot. And But them little moments are really important. But my point coming is, in those moments, like when you're a kid and your mum or your dad shouts, it's time to go in, and you're devastated, there's nothing more serious than play when you're in it. Do you know what I mean? When you're immersed in it.
Absolutely. I mean, there was times
Sometimes
you do, and part of that is the coach sort of role modeling that sometimes. So we used to play, and you'd be totally involved as well, and you have to show that joy of playing and the enjoyment of chasing and running and clearing one off the line and all those sort of things as an example. But yeah, a big part of that is that in learning, you learn not only the content of what you learn the context, you learn the atmosphere. So if you're learning in that atmosphere and you're totally absorbed, if you're playing top level football, you have to be totally absorbed to get all the cues, to get the focus, to get the concentration, to get the flow, not only the football flow in moves, but the mental flow that you're really immersed in it. So that's what you want to do, engage them enough so they're competing, but also high level skills would be absolutely, that's vital. And yeah, make it memorable. Make it absolutely memorable so that they get that feeling of loving it and it stays with them.
I'm just gonna pick up a question there around the experiences, really, just to and it's around. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the questions. Around your role in the diet and deciding who gets what. So there's a question around: did everyone get in the cage or whatever? And I'm obviously conscious that there's a lot of coaches working in different settings with kids playing for lots of different reasons. So it's really important that we're inclusive, and it's part of the idea of how do you decide who gets what experience, really.
Yeah, well, obviously not everybody could fit in the cage, different age groups. So it was always had to be a high mixture of older ones to make sure that the learning was good. And then we would just cherry pick some of them, but the others would always get a version of the cage in an indoor area or the next area. So people didn't miss out in that sense. And obviously as they got older, the actual what they could learn as they got more concepts and they understood and they had the higher level of skills or understanding or awareness, what they got out of that cage changed. So the older ones are already a bit seasoned, they know what they're doing, but the younger ones at first, some of them used to stay on the edge, a bit frightened to go in the middle because they had to pick it up. So it'd take them a few weeks, a few months, and then eventually start to copy the older ones and they go in. Now, if they went back to their own age group, they'd be the guys in the middle and somebody else would be on the edge. And it just worked like that. In that sense. But of course, when you're at a professional club as well, it has to be done also on competition. They have to learn, the best ones are going to get in the first team. So you have to be the best. You have to be competing to the best. You have to get into the team. Now, sometimes the best at the time, they may not be strong enough or old enough or what have you to get in that. So that's a way also you have to manage it to make sure you're getting the differentiation right, and that you're matching them up with other people.
Yeah, I think just to summarize, I think there's different benefits you can get from mixed age groups. Part of it is about learning from older around the techniques and the skill. Part of it might be some social leadership type skills would be one of the older ones and looking after the younger ones. So there's various reasons. The other thing I would say just to the coaches out there is it takes some careful consideration, and also someone might play within that setting once or twice, and then they might not for a few weeks. So it's not that everything's always definitive, and you might play about with it. So I would just say to summarize, is careful consideration, but and for all these experiences of just deciding where the kids are at, why did they come. What have you got available to you? How can you provide a variety of experiences for the kids? But all coming from linking from before and moving on to the next bit really is having the spirit of football front and centre of how do we keep this spirit of football going, and then the connecting people. So then the people that you're with are on the same wavelength, and you know what you're trying to do, and you're generating the common purpose and belonging, and the experiences then fit into that. So you're providing a variety of experiences, but it's all to but it's for the kids. It's to give them a variety of experiences. It's not because we want to fiddle about with stuff. It's because it all fuels the flame of football, really. And then with that, so if we've got the spirit of football and connecting people and connecting experiences, now we get to connecting football. So a big thing around really connecting football, connecting with the ball, connecting to football is the sense and feel that we need to try and develop in players, and that the best players have got an abundance, they tend to, and anyway, but we need to sort of nurture that sense and feeling in the players through all ages, and then the noticing skills that comes from that. So what's your thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to get that absolute joy of football in there, and that really drives a curiosity. Curiosity to love the game, to really look closely at what players are doing. And the best players have good observation skills or noticing skills. They notice the details. They're so in love with football that they notice, how each player plays, the little things that they do, and then they try to copy them. And that's vital, because the game is all about perception. It's all about noticing what your opponent's doing, noticing the spin on the ball, noticing, where your teammates are. And so we want to make sure that idea of are they noticing things is vital. And that starts really with the very start, is the real feeling and feel for the ball and noticing how that goes. Now, why is that so important? Well, if we think about the game in the most basic way, if we're talking about attacking, the other team's trying to stop you. So they're stopping you going forward. They're blocking your way. They're trying to get a stable block and compact shape so you can't play through them, round them, over them. And what have you got to do? You have to flow quicker than them. So you have to have a feel for the ball and a feel for all these connections, to notice all of them so that you can connect well with each teammate and flow faster than your opponent, either individually or collectively. Or if they flow just as quick as you, you've got to be able to disrupt them, stop and turn the other way, disguise, and so on. So this real feel and noticing skills is vital. And it leads to a series of connections that really we have to start on. And sometimes because we just take it for granted, the connection on the ball is one of the most important things you can have. And if you love football, you love the ball, then mastering that ball is vital. So you think about the connection on the ball. You've got the control of the ball. Now, in most cases, that means you have to cushion the ball. It's coming towards you, cushioning it. Sometimes you'll wedge it, chap it, or you'll bounce it off your chest. But a lot of times you have to cushion and relax at the last second. I remember Jim Ryan doing this with a group of players, under 14s, 15s, and it was bouncing off them a bit. They were playing a little ball. They had to keep it up, volley it over. And he turned and said, "Look at one of the older ones here, Josh Harrop. He was one of the older ones coming back from injury. And he's playing for Preston now. And watch him cushion the ball. So he's coming back and cushioning the ball on his chest. So at the very last second. Now, in order to do that, you have to relax your body. So you don't need some coach from the side shouting, faster, faster, tempo, tempo, pushing it like that. You need to be able to relax just for a second. And then you might play it quick. Yeah. So the players need this feel for the ball and this connection on the ball that just comes from practice and practice and practice. A lot of it's on their own. Coaches can give them a question. Did you notice this? Do you notice what happens when you kick underneath the ball or down the side? Like my dad said to me when I was 4, do you notice the spin on the ball? Do you notice how it feels? So there's all of that. And it takes me back to a time where we had from the French National Centre, Clairefontaine, a really good coach come and visit us at Manchester United called Andre Morel. And he started off with his a coaching demonstration. He started off with kicking the ball against the ball. And after 5-10 minutes, some of our coaches are saying, well, when's he going to start coaching? And I was saying, well, yeah, but look at it. And he started, and he's going to the real fundamentals of kicking the ball. And he was saying, look, hit it on the bump on the foot. It's my bad French accent, but hit it on the bump. So he's saying, you've got to hit it right on the instep, bump, and hit it, ping it there. Get a feel for it. Now, he had an exercise for this, and he showed us it, and I used it for years afterwards. And he's saying, keep the ball up, juggling. And most of the time, we keep that up below knee high, and we spin the ball back because our feet are going underneath it. He said you had to keep it up with no spin, which means you have to get your foot flat here and get a really firm contact on it. So you have to point your toe not have a floppy ankle, and you have to keep it up. And you're trying to hit that ball with no spin. Keep it up, bump, 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 up high, then down low, then over your head, turn, get it the next way. So real high level skills. And that can help your pinging of the ball, hitting it long. I did it for years, and it absolutely works. It was a great little skill game to practice. But
I think, Paul, just linking, I'm trying to keep up with the questions around. There's a lot around the cage, and just linking two things really briefly is what's really important at the heart of this is a deep appreciation of skill and a deep appreciation of the craft. And that's really important. Now we have it as coaches and help players develop it. It comes from the spirit of football, but really developing a curiosity, as Paul said, with a real appreciation for the craft. For part of the noticing skills, and that links a bit to the cage. Some of the cage questions fundamentally is part of the cage experience needs to be coupled with an appreciation of skill. So it's you provide the setting for it, but it's got to feel skillful. It's got to have some instinctive. People need to loosen the shoulders. They need to play with some imagination, some expression. Need to encourage that. So I don't want to go back to the cage of just.
It's the same thing, I think, Graeme.
That feeling needs to run through it to develop the things Paul's now talking about now around the feedback that you get, the noticing skills. It all comes together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the cage was basically, and like you're doing when you play the ball against the wall. You know, some great quotes from Dennis Bergkamp's book where he said he just fell in love with the ball, and he was bouncing the ball against the wall, looking at the spin. He's captivated by it. And again, the cage and all these things, it's like a skills lab. Now, in a lab, what do? You try an experiment. It doesn't quite work. So you know the next time that's not the thing to do. The next time you do the next thing. And then it's constantly working like that, that's where you have to have good feedback skills. So you've given them an idea. So one of the things in the cage was it had a roof on it, and a net roof. So if you tried to blast it clear, it hit the roof. So you had to have a really good touch with the inside of your foot to just lob it over the defenders or the attackers who would come towards you to play it to the front. And it was very difficult. To hit a long ball in there, you had to really just clip it just above head height. So this is getting the feeling and connection on the ball that you really, really need to look for. And in that sense, another guy I met, I always used to go to games with my dad, scouting for players, looking at teams. And I remember this one Friday night, I was in the boardroom halftime at Stockport County. They used to play on a Friday night. And I'm with a group of managers, just stood there, and I'm probably about 14. And this guy turned to me, and I didn't know who he was at the time, but it turns out he was a Manchester City legend in the 40s and 50s called Peter Doherty. He was the Northern Ireland manager at one point. And he said to me, "Son, do you want to be a player?" And I went, "Oh, yes, I do. I really do." And he said, "I'll give you one bit of advice. That's one of the best bits of advice I've ever had." He said, "Never kick a ball aimlessly." Now, I was already at that stage infatuated with football and practicing, but if I hit the ball against the wall, I hit it for a particular brick. I hit it for a particular place, a particular point. I always try to aim for it. And it's really important for your practice because that gives you your feedback. If you have a target, I'm trying to hit the crossbar 8 times out of 10, then I know the next time if I beat it, I'll beat it 9 or 7. Hit the ball against the wall. If you don't have somewhere to aim from, if you pull it to the left, well, you've no way of correcting yourself if you don't know where you're going to. So having a target and challenging yourself, keep the ball up for 10 on the left foot, 10 on the right foot, 100 on the left foot, 100 on the right foot, alternate, headers against the wall. You set yourself a target and you try and beat it. And that's what the best players, I think, are doing.
I think Tony Carr, as an extension of a warm-up or sometimes on a bit more of a rest day, even with the under-18s, you might do some unopposed work to get your legs going, really. But doing any of the third man movement stuff we used to do, we'd often like do it without mannequins or cones, and you'd just be in an area, and it could be on half a pitch. But one of the things, the way I'm getting to, one of the things he used to ask us to do was use your imagination. And one of the reasons we didn't always use mannequins is because mannequins stay still, where if you're using your imagination, defenders can move. But one of the other things he used to say was leave the ball on the line. So don't just play it in there. You've got to really try and leave the ball so that it stops on the line or in a particular place. And so again, it's just that little extra little bit. So from the side watching, you'd think, oh, they're just doing some other post. But when you're in it, and if you're immersed in it, that you've got a laser focus going on. You're trying to really leave the ball in a particular place and get the timing and the feel and all that comes the sense and feel.
Yeah, and what this brings, and the top players have, is an absolute pride in accuracy and efficiency. So they want that ball exactly right. They want to play you a pass that's perfect for you. Eric Cantona would do that at United for years, and they'd tell you what to do with that pass. So for me, for kids, accuracy and efficiency. Looking at finishing, reading recently Ian Wright's book, he would say on finishing, he wouldn't aim for the side netting. He'd aim for four squares on the net in the corner, and then he'd start to try and hit it in off the post, then hit the post. So you're going for more and more accuracy, and this is what defines the top players. For me, this then becomes automatic. Once these things have become automatic, then you've got space in their head to see a lot more about the game. So you have to automate these. If you don't, and you let them get away with a bobbly pass, then the next stage is more difficult. They can't look over the shoulder because the ball's bobbling. So the connection on the ball and striking of the ball is absolutely vital. And that idea of never kick a ball aimlessly, to leave the pass playable, as Tony Carr used to say, didn't he? And smooth it out, I think, are vital things. But if you get that right, and the first touch you're right are fantastic. So if you imagine there's certain connections, you've got the ball connected, you've got it under control, you've got it to the right place, but the next stage is there's someone in front of you. He's trying to be stable and stop you playing forward. So now you need to disconnect from this opponent. So it's vital that you can unbalance and destabilize him in order to either get a shot, a cross, or a pass to someone going forward. So in that sense, your tactics would be maybe to drag it close and then dodge. That's the old one we used to do, drag and dodge. Or then if he blocks that, to be able to feint, to pass and turn. These things are vital. So your tactics, in this sense, individual tactics, changes of speed, stop and start, drag and then dodge quickly, changes of direction to turn, disguise to make it look like you're going one way, timing. And Jim Ryan had this idea of the arrogance of timing, so that you would let the guy come quickly and then turn at the last moment, or you just wait till he commits himself and then play it off. A great term, the arrogance of timing, that we need to let them get close to us before we play. And then you've got, disguise, and also the use of the body as a barrier. So all that coming into how you disconnect from your opponent, sort of on and off the ball, would be really, really vital in this net, in a series of connections that flow. And then, of course,
just for coaches across the age groups as well, I think you can start them instincts and that thinking in tag games, even around disconnecting from opponents and using your mate to hide behind, and all the little sneaky skills that kids have naturally got in the instincts. We need to keep them sneaky skills going, because it might be the strike in the box that actually can disconnect quickly from an opponent to get across them, or to disconnect to get a shot off. So those sort of childlike instincts, we need to keep them going and keep the senses going.
Yeah, and I in this one, my theme here is a predator. They've got to have the instincts to be cunning, to be clever, to go slow, then slow, then quick, to disguise what they're doing. So that's my sort of symbol and image for it.
Also, really, the connection, as well as having a connection yourself with the ball and disconnecting from opponents, you need to connect with others, don't you?
Absolutely. Then, so that's now, how do I connect with my teammate? What's the body language? How do I get that pass to him, and so on, so that it connects smoothly? We got a flow.
So last year, just as a clip to show up, I spoke to Michael just about his thoughts around various things about passing, receiving, and other parts of his game, really, just to get his perspective. So this is him talking about connections with others.
Call it pass appreciation, but you really appreciate that pass, what it's doing, the pace of it, no bounces. Ultimately, if you're passing it to someone, you're passing it to them for them to do something with it instantly. And if they've got to take a touch and another touch to get hold of the ball because it's not in a great position, then it's not a great pass. If they can do something exactly as you see it, instantly, then it's a good pass. and you're sometimes passing it in a way on an angle because you know the next pass what it should be, so you're dictating to the first teammate to pass to the second teammate because you've seen that picture already. So the weight and the angle and the kind of pass that you're given takes control of the next bit as well. It's not just finished once it's got to your foot or once it's touched the teammate. It's a great pass if the next part is then how you see it in your head.
So the connections with others is vital, and obviously there's some midfield examples, but that can happen anywhere in the pitch in any moment around, and often on the ball. But if we're talking on the ball, around the timing and eye contact and a connection between the passer and the receiver, or two players, or the moving player and the receiver and the ball carrier is really, really important. And there's a lot of care that you can. So some of those examples, even on the clips, might look simple, but often the best players do some of the simple things just really, really, really well. Around the care, Paul, you talked before about leaving it playable if you're setting to somebody else, so they can then play first time. It's a detail, but it's really important part of the connections and the flow, isn't it? But also the different, like playing a pass smooth passes, so the receiver, it's all part of the connection and connecting with others.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure whether how well that played for people, but some key things there about before he's even played that pass, before he receives it, he's already had a look. So that opening up to have a look behind is absolutely vital to prepare for that pass and be ready, so that then he can get the touch to the first place, and then it's leaving the pass playable so that the next guy can play to the next pass. And sometimes he plays it in such a way that it's so clear that it's the next pass might be up, back, through the next one. And now we've got a flow. So that's those connections that we're talking about. And again, when we think about this, you have to be absorbed. And it has to be, a lot of these things have to be automated so that you've done it years after years. And that's where the spirit of football comes in, and the right atmosphere that you're playing in, so that those people are connected, and those experiences where they connect previously, they all come to fruition here to get this connection between the players.
And that's where Paul, formats can play a big role as well. So the different experiences, so the instincts, but also things like futsal, because you get a high repetition of some of these small number connections and individual tactics, but some small number connections, and because of the different surface, you're slightly attuned that your senses are a little bit different, as the way the flow is, where the ball moves. So all that is all part of developing the noticing skills and the real appreciation of the craft and the connection with the ball, but also with others.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 4v4s, 6v6 we played, you can get these common pictures coming all the time, so that then they get the repetition and they can instantly get the feel for the key factors in it, in preparing the space to come off at the right angle, to then get the ball to the right place, to then play on. So yeah, all of this is vital, and the communication between them is another link in the flow. It's another connection. Absolutely.
When you talk about communication, a lot of it is like, you can have verbal communication, but a lot of it is non-verbal. It's like football communication, where you're sending signals, aren't you? You're hiding your intentions if you can from your opponent, so they don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah,
you need to send some signals to your teammate if you're trying to receive in any way. So a little bit about timing and where you want it. Well, you see strikers pointing sometimes, so that then the defender's blindside, so the defender can't see them, but their mate can. So all those, and that's quite an obvious way of communicating, but it might just be eye contact, mightn't it? Where it's like a nod of the head, or might not even be that. If once you've played with people and developed relationships, sometimes it's even a little bit more on instinct even than that, isn't it? But one of the things we're talking about as well is before, during, and after, which is, at the FA we talk about in our courses a lot. And that's a big part of the connection. I know at Man United, back in the day, and with Eric Harrison, a lot of the players talk about the ball routine that Eric did. So can you just explain what that was?
Yeah, it was a very sort of simple routine, but vital in the development of so many players. And it was all about awareness. Did you know what you were going to do before the ball came? And could you get a connection with the next guy? So it was a simple routine whereby, depending on the number of players you have, you might have 16 players, you'd have 4 balls. He did it every morning with the class of 92. With my age group before that, I did it, and most of the other players after that. And it was a case of getting the awareness. So if you got a connection, you got eye contact with someone, you had a look before you went. Now you came off to the ball. As the ball was played smooth on its way, you'd maybe come off on an angle, you'd look again. So you had 2 looks, and now you'd imagine a picture in your mind, and then you'd receive it maybe inside, outside of the foot, or the next one might be with the outside of the foot, or across your body with the inside of the foot, or behind your leg. And you would create all the little technical work, but the main thing was the getting the picture over the shoulder. Now, some people say, oh, well, there was nobody to see, there was no defender. But you imagine that, and then you would go into a practice. And if you didn't get it right in the practice, so he'd be onto you, he'd be telling you, and he'd do, say, silent football. He'd do silent football for 20 minutes. And now, of course, you've got to look. You can't see, nobody can tell you. And he did that once as a demonstration at Manchester University with a load of coaches. And someone at the end of it said to him, but when are you going to do your coaching, Eric? Or he nearly throttled the guy. He was like, what do you mean? When am I going to do my coaching? So he'd set the idea, the theme of looking over the shoulder, and now he's observing all the players. And because it's so quiet, the coach now has to observe. Is he looking beforehand? Is he not? And if not, he just give them a little reminder and so on. Now, if you did it in a match day at the Cliff, he used to play, and he would sit up in the office upstairs. And that was great, again, because you were free to just play and do the things. But if you didn't look over your shoulder, if you got caught, he used to bang on the window and you'd hear it and everybody'd look up. And if you looked up and he wasn't there, you thought, oh, my God, he's coming down. And then he would give it you because it was such a vital thing. Now, I'm not saying young kids you should be doing that with, but you should remind them, because in a football essence, it's only what people do with their kids who are growing up. Everybody does it. How to cross the road. It's very dangerous. Look at one way, look left, look right, look left, look right. It's not safe to cross. Now it's safe to cross. And you do that all the way through until they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, until you think they're safe. And that is exactly the same in football. If they can't look over their shoulder, they are dead. If they can't look and check, they could be dead on the football pitch. All these connections will be slowed down, and there will be no flow to get through if they don't know what they're going to do next. So it was such a vital piece of the training that he did for years. Yeah.
And Eric did that with the youth team. So we're talking about under 18s, aren't we? Yeah, I know you might have done that with the 14, 16s, but primarily you're talking there, I'm guessing, around the under 18s. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I can just picture them all doing it in the first team. It became second nature to them. It became automatic. Now, if you know what's coming, then and you do that as automatic, it's all part of the link. So if the ball comes to the first guy and he's got the right contact on the ball, he gets his touch to the right place. He's already had a look. He knows to the next guy. The next guy, he's playing a smooth pass that leaves it playable. So he can play it first time if he wants, or he can leave it. But if he's had 2 looks, he's looked beforehand, at least 2 looks, but as it's on its way, he's looked, and then it's on his way, he's looked, he can now get the ball to the right place because he knows the next picture. The next picture's applied by the guy who might be marked, but he's already given by his position a clue of what might happen next. As he gets eye contact, he might come short to entice the guy in. As the guy comes short, then the midfield player might look to play it to him, but play it inside the fullback and disrupt there. So you've got a flow and then a disruption at the end of their defence.
I think
those are the connections that you need, yeah.
My point of that out was around players as they get older. Some of these core skills still need revisited and built on. And it's interesting that Eric did that even as late as under 18, was still having to focus on some of the core skills as well. So it's just something to consider. Sometimes I think we think kids, they should have it by this age. They don't need it, but sometimes they need, even regardless of and that's where the practice ingredients come in, as well as the play, and all these experiences give the players the chance to practice some of these things. And as coaches, do we focus enough? It's an open question. Do we focus enough on the individual as well as the team tactical thing? But one of the, where this links, I guess, is as a young player myself at West Ham, Tony Carl probably quite famously and coaching circles used to spend a lot of time on the third man run. And where this came from was, I think, originally from Ron Greenwood, from his appreciation of the Hungarians back in the early 50s, in the idea of moving triangles, which I won't go into too much now. But from that, they did a lot of stuff, as we would call, about the third man run, and also sort of 3-player setting up play. So you have different 3 and 4 player combinations. Really, it wasn't positional. It was just the principles of connecting with each other. But that comes from, you need the connection with the ball. You need to be able to connect with others in twos, really, and then from that you can get into connecting in threes. And so this was some of the stuff that we did with Tony. And this is just a clip of Tony talking through some of the third man stuff that we did at West Ham. And again, this was as under 18s.
You know, his big influence was the third man run. And I used to do this with the boys almost every day, third man running. I mean, you might even remember yourself, Graeme. And it was something that was I really felt was important. Because Ron used to say to me, and John to a certain degree used to say, well, if it's done well, it can't be stopped. And, you know, that is quick, fast, one touch, and good timing and good movement, the run forward. A couple of years ago when I bumped into Rio, he said to me, "You're still doing third man running?" I did have to chuckle to myself. I didn't think it was that obvious, but obviously he said, but it stayed with me.
Whenever I'm asked about Tony and kind of what I learned and what we learned as a team, it's always the main thing I say, and it's third man runs, weight of pass, timing of your run, when to change the speed of the pass, what space is between you to give the chance to open up the pass, to open up the angle, so you're not just running and passing in straight lines. It's not all about the third man run, but within passing movements and creating space, all that was done in that simple warm-up. But it wasn't the warm-up that was the key, it was Tony's information, and that's what I took from Tony and speaking to other players who came through. We were all in the same boat. We all mentioned the classic third man run. And it will be a case of going into the detail, and we're talking, you know, we'd be passing in the triangle as a 3 at a certain rhythm and a certain tempo, and all of a sudden there'd be that trigger, and as I was talking about no straight lines, you know, one will pull off the angle, it'll be kind of a square pass, an angle pass into the front. And the key thing for me is the angle layoff, to open up the passing lane for the little through ball for the third man run. And you know, that ball into which probably will be a front man, that's the quick pass. That's the quick pass. The layoff's the slow pass, but the layoff's got to be on an angle, as I've just said, to open up the passing lane and the timing of the run then to get the third man in. Crucial details, but they all add up to making it look very simple and very straightforward. And when you don't get that quite right, it breaks down and it's a bit stuttery and it's a bit stop-start. But if it flows and everything's right, touch is right, speed of pass is right, timing of support and run, right angle of support and run, angle of through pass, and the timing of the third man run, boom. That's when you're in business and everything looks quite easy.
So that's where I know Michael goes into a little bit of detail there about some of the stuff that stuck with him through his career, but came from Tony's coaching around the third man stuff. And there's a lot of it. It's not so much, as I said before, it's not about the position or the patterns. It was around the principle and the thinking and around the connections. And a big part of developing that is through this, having the spirit of football and going from where Pete Sturgis talks about staying on the ball, that around connecting with the ball is so vital, because then the next bit's often relying on that, because you can only start planning your position to receive if you can trust the player on the ball can be in control of their moment, then you can get a better connection and so on and so on. And it's just making sure that we are aware that what that highlights was Tony spent a lot of time. It stuck when you speak to a lot of the lads. It really, some of those messages and what we learned really stuck. And I noticed on the chat someone's mentioned about like Tex Winter and the basketball, which has been quite topical with the Bulls. And so there's variations in different sports, but just the idea of how do you connect in threes and then start thinking ahead. Someone said about, I think Dips had said about snooker players thinking ahead. It's part of that idea of getting people thinking and curious and really absorbing the game. So just ways of building it up, and they're sort of relying on these connections, really.
Yeah, very much so. And what the big thing to remember here is that you have to spend the time at the start and really get some of these fundamentals automatic before you can move on. And I see quite a lot of people moving on from small-sided games to the bigger games, or they're moving on to a more adult tactical setup when they're not technically capable of having these interconnections. So a lot of the things there that Graeme was talking about, they're interdependent on you having certain fundamentals in place. Can you get the ball to the right place? What's your first touch like? You know, can you leave the pass playable? Do you come off at the right angle, but you've already had a look over your shoulder there? So the third man run is really a connection off the second pass. And can he time that? Now, the interdependent connections that are vital. And the last connection to put the guy through or to make him run behind is really obviously vital in the match. And it's one thing I had when I had Marcus Rashford. He joined me when he was 16. He just had a year or year and a half where he'd struggled to run very well because he had Osgood slatters. So he wasn't quite ready to make a lot of runs behind. So it was a year or so later that we started to try to get the last sort of piece in the jigsaw for him, in a sense of the connection he needed, because he had a connection with the ball. He was brilliant on the ball, could run, dribble, run with the ball, combine. But he was playing as a winger or number 10, coming off to the ball all the time. We said, well, we want you to get this connection with the passer to run behind. So we started to do a lot of work on it. And in the end, it turned out that there was a series of key things, key sort of connections that he had to pull together. So number one was the position. A lot of the time need to be blind side of the defender, get on his blind side so you can look at the defender and see him. He's a key point in the equation of where the space will be able to look at the defender's head, see his eyes, look at the position. Or if you drop deep and the defender comes with you, now can you see the space is going to be behind him? So there's space. And then also the scanning. So you've got to be able to scan, look over your shoulder, check for the spaces, but look at the defender's position and his eyes. But at the same time, look at the ball traveling. Is it traveling smooth to the passer? So if he's got time on the ball and the ball's traveling smooth, you might be able to get a first time pass. Then you're thinking about the movement, the timing of movement, because you don't want to reveal that too soon. So you want to be deceptive, hide your intentions, blindside or goal or offside. Hide your intentions, and the last second, the timing is revealing the picture so it becomes clear. You know, so it might be a run behind the defense then, or a blindside run to get the timing and to get the technique and footwork. So there's a lot of interconnecting things that have to come into place, but there's no way you could teach him that unless, first of all, his techniques were good, so that he didn't have to worry about the ball. He had thinking space to take time to think over this. And it took him about 6 months to really get it. And then, well, after 6 months, he was nearly in the first team, yeah.
This is, again, I asked Marcus about, and Jesse, and also asked Luke Shaw about their journey growing up last year. And this was a little bit about Marcus and Jesse talking about connections. And part of it is about then being able to step up into the first team in this setting for these lads at that age. And appreciating how to play and fit into the team and play with the mates, and just the importance of connections within that for them. So this is Marcus and Jesse talking about that.
Just simple things like preparing your space before you make the movement. So maybe taking the defender away, even though you know you're going to go into that channel. But it's all based off connections with the players. So say, for example, when Juan's on the ball, I never go too close to him. I prefer to pull away, let him have his space, and then I can make my movements into his space. Where someone like Jesse, if he's got the ball, you go close, and then you can link and change positions at the same time. So, you know, it's just what you see in the time. And then I just say always prepare your space before you move. If you just move, then it's pointless.
Even like as the ball's, you know, gradually building up, and you can see, you know, the next pass will be probably into you, then You can already have a look. I'll see where the striker is, maybe Marcus. As the ball's coming, obviously, I already know he's there, so it's maybe around the corner, one touch. And I know he'll play it back to me, and then, you know, we start our attack. So it's just reading the game before it even happens.
That's why I always say that at Man United, the way that the youngsters play, you can tell a Man United player from a mile off. And that's one of the reasons why they have the same train of thought.
Where do you think that wavelength comes from? Because it's like when you play with Jesse and you sort of combine with him or whatever, and you've got that, like an instinct. How is that developed through that? Or how do you think that comes?
I think definitely it's through being at the same club for the length of time that we've both been here. Like I said, the club's not just about building a player. It's about building a person, and when you take that onto the pitch, you bring the person out here. And if you bring people up the same way, you know, they're going to be close and they're going to connect on the pitch, and that's the final thing that everybody wants out of it. You want to be able to connect with other players in the first team.
We're getting to the point really of summarising, I guess. So a little bit around two main. Well, there's four aims were set at the start around connecting people, connecting experiences, and connecting football, all within and sort of fueled by this flame of the spirit of football. Now, but I guess, and I'll go to Paul with this around what Marcus was just talking about is connection. There's lots of connections run through in lots of ways, and almost connecting generations and having a connected idea and wavelength. These words keep coming up, and this wasn't prompted. I didn't ask Marcus about connections in this interview. We're just talking about some things that he learned as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, and he talked a lot about connection. So it just seems to keep coming up a lot around the importance of it, but also then about connecting generations of players or connecting with different ages. So when they get to the first team, just some interesting comments there, Paul. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think, you know, if we're asking people to notice things, then they can't be worried about, is that ball bouncing and will I be able to control it and so on. You can't notice if your mind's full of those things. So you have to spend a lot of time getting that automated. That's a clear part of the identity, all that smoothed out. So that's the first connection. You don't have to worry about that. That's automatic. And then then in that case, his connections with the players, he's got to connect with their centre half to maybe look where he is, look at the positions. Now he's getting the timing to connect with the other players. And the interesting thing is the extra level is that they start to consider, oh, I'm connecting differently with a different player because he's got different strengths and weaknesses. And that's the extra level of intelligence that the top players will have. And in that sense, you know, that's a big reason why you spend a lot of time connecting them as kids, so that the different age groups connect, so that they know each other's game already. So Marcus was 11 playing with Jesse and them when they're 18. So he's already connected with them, got a feel for them. They all play in a similar style, and they have that spirit of football that's the same. Juan comes in, he's got a similar style, but he can connect with him. So it's also in a club, whether it be a grassroots club, a non-league club, a lower division club, or a top Premier League club, the big benefit from having players who've grown through your system is that they've had shared experiences that have been moulded by a set of people that have care for them and make them belong. And in that sense, they've got an identity in the way they play, the way they connect. And I think that then emphasizes a spirit of football. It emphasizes it. And what you can have then, you have 4 or 5 homegrown players. They can be bigger than the actual sum of the parts is bigger of the.
Yeah, and I think just to leave with people, because we haven't got time for questions. There's a question for them around primarily the spirit of football. What does it mean to you, and how do you provide and provoke that and keep the flame for football burning brightly in your players, whatever setting that is vital. So just something to consider. Hope it's had some value. This will be on YouTube on Monday. We'll be on Twitter for any follow-up questions, and all the videos are on the FA Boot Room website. So thanks everyone for that. Please do follow up with questions on Twitter or wherever, and see you all again soon. And thanks for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.